ليش أحمر متصل؟
دقيقة
ليش؟
استنى خلاص
نعم
هنبلش
بس ليش أحمر متصل؟
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بشر وأنذر لا خير إلا دل الأمة عليه ولا شر إلا حذرها منه فصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. نسأل الله جل وعلا أن يبصرنا بالحق وأن يمن علينا بالالتزام به والثبات عليه حتى يتوفانا وهو راض عنا. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وقلبا خاشعا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك أن نضل أو نضل أو نزل أو نزل أو نظلم أو نظلم أو نجهل أو يجهل علينا. اللهم آمين. All praise is due to Allah Azza wa Jal. We praise Him, we worship Him, we seek His tawfiq, we seek His assistance, and we pray to Allah Azza wa Jal to guide us and to keep us guided on the straight path until we meet Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that said, like I announced after the salat, we're going to start our discussion of al-masah ala al-khuffayn. But like we've always done, we go back and quickly review what we talked about the last time and then continue our discussion into the new topic. I know we talked about al-wudu last time. Remember, we reviewed together all the different acts, the mandatory acts and the recommended acts. And by recommended, we mean the sunan al-wudu, the sunan acts of al-wudu. And we demonstrated that. Going forward, this is also something that we covered before Ramadan. But, it is so important that I'm going to go quickly over this, right? We're not going to go over the evidences and the proofs. We've already provided that in the previous halaqah. But we're going to quickly go over the different nullifiers. What you perform wudu, what nullifies one's wudu, right? There are multiple acts that nullify the wudu. We say these nullifiers are six nullifiers, 6 acts that nullify one's wudu. The first one is anything that is discharged from the 2 natural openings of the body, the front and the back opening of the body. That could be anything from urine, from feces. It could be al-mani, right, the liquid that the man and the woman can discharge. Al-madhi, which is very similar, right? And we're not in a, at a point where we're going to discuss what each one of them is and what the difference, but I'm pretty sure most, if not all of you, understand the difference between al-mani and al-madhi, and all of them are discharges from the body. Any one of them coming out of any of the 2 openings, bad blood from the woman, call it istihada, right? Which is the blood that can come out of the female beyond their period, the natural period. We're not talking about the period because during the period they don't have to make wudu, they don't have to pray, right? But we're talking sometimes, even beyond the period for the female, she could see some bad blood, right? Which is not from al-hayd, right? And in that case, she has to pray, but she has to perform wudu for every prayer. Or passing gas, right, is also a nullifier of the wudu. For all of them, urine, feces, bad blood, whether it is little or whether it is much, Either way, it nullifies one's wudu. And like I said, we gave a lot of evidences on each and every single one of them, but we're not, in the process of doing that. We can review the previous halaqah. So any discharge from any of the two front or back openings or passages of the body. Second, right, emission of any impure substance from any other place. Sometimes, right, you may wonder, what does that mean, right? Sometimes, especially those who may have undergone a surgery, right, or injury, they have injury or whatever, they may urinate from other than the natural place. The urine may come out of the body from other than the natural place or passage. Likewise, feces can come out of other than the natural place, the back passage of the body. So if that happens, then that also nullifies and invalidates the wudu. Likewise, vomiting and blood that comes obviously other than the two places, the two passages, that also invalidate or nullifies the wudu, especially if it is in large quantities. If it is small quantities, then no problem. But if it is in significant quantities, then that nullifies the wudu. And the stronger opinion is for the person to redo the wudu, right? Do a fresh wudu. That's the second one. The third one is losing one's mind. Somebody losing the mind, whether permanently, as in insanity, or temporarily, as in sleeping, as in intoxication, right? As in, falling unconsciousness, right? If all of these cases are temporary, losing the mind temporarily, right? All of these nullify the wudu. Now, one kind of like a side note, what do we mean by sleep? We mean by sleep the heavy sleep, the deep sleep, not the light sleep or shallow sleep where the person can continue to be conscious. Their senses are still working. They might close their eyes, right? And they actually may go into shallow sleep, but they're still conscious. And we gave the example, or we gave the proof of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, where they sometimes they would be in the masjid ahead of the prayer, right? Like half an hour before prayer, and they may actually take a quick, shallow nap or sleep, and when the call for the prayer is made, they would wake up and then pray without performing ablution or wudu, right? So what we mean by sleep is the deep sleep, where you become unconscious. And another side note, we noticed also that it is not the sleep itself that nullifies the wudu. What nullifies the wudu is because you don't know. It could be that you invalidated your wudu and there's no way you can tell. So that's why you need to renew the wudu, not the sleep itself, right? You might sleep and you may never invalidate the wudu, but how can you tell? And this is a prayer, this is a ibadah that can only build on what? On yaqeen. You can't build it on doubt, right? The tahara is a prerequisite of the salah. And if you're not sure if you still have tahara or not, you cannot perform the prayer based on doubt. You have to perform it based on yaqeen, being sure, certainty that you are pure. You have tahara, the required tahara. So just, two side notes for those who would like to know that. The fourth one is touching the private part directly without shield. With your own skin, touching the private part without shield. And again, we gave the proofs on that, some of the ahadith, including hadith Habiba and Abi Ayyub, where Rasulullah ﷺ said, whoever touches his private part, let him perform wudu. Fifth act that nullifies the wudu is eating camel's meat. Eating camel's meat. Now that's not very common in this country, if at all, right? I've never heard of somebody eating camel meat in this country. But for example, back in the Gulf area, in the Gulf countries, it's commonplace, right? Whenever they celebrate or even on a regular basis, but especially in weddings and whatnot, right? They eat camel meat. It nullifies the wudu. Again, we gave the example. We gave the proof from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ related in Sahih Muslim, where he was asked about the sheep meat, and he said, "It's up to you. You may renew it, and you may not." But when he was asked about the camel meat, he said, "Go back and perform wudu." That proved that it nullifies the wudu. The sixth nullifier of wudu is وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ somebody to leave or go out of the pillars of Islam or pale of Islam, to commit وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ ridda an Islam, which is apostasy, because that person is not a Muslim anymore if they commit that, and that invalidates or nullifies one's wudu. For Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ in Surah Al-Ma'idah. And whoever denies the faith, his work has become worthless, and he is in the hereafter, or he in the hereafter will be among the losers. And obviously, al-wudu is what? Is a type of work. Allah Azza wa Jal said, then his work has become فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ. And al-wudu, is it amal or not? Is it amal? It is amal, right? حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ, so it invalidates and it nullifies his work. That includes the wudu, so the wudu is not valid anymore. In other terms, now obviously this is not a common scenario as well. If that person go back to Islam, then he needs to renew his wudu. His previous wudu is invalid anymore. 6 nullifier of wudu is anything that requires al-ghusl also requires wudu. Yani any act that requires the person to perform ghusl, that also necessitates, that would nullify the wudu and requires a wudu. And we said we haven't covered the ghusl yet. We're going to come. That's one of the few topics that are remaining in this chapter of Tahara. By the way, just to give you a heads up, we're almost at the end of it. And then inshallah next will be the chapter of As-Salah. And I'm looking forward to it. As-Salah is a very important chapter. And we're going to go into the details from every aspect. But everything that necessitates, any act that necessitates and requires a ghusl, right? Like approaching wife, waking up with a wet dream, etc., all of that requires ghusl. It requires as well wudu. And we said that, or we have actually, we're going to talk about that, but the wudu can be part of al-ghusl. And that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We're going to see that. Now, I know I asked you this before. I don't know if anybody remembers. We said anything that requires al-ghusl requires al-wudu, except in one case. It requires ghusl, but not al-wudu. Who can guess that? Death. Ahsant. Barakallah fik. Death requires ghusl. That's it. Khalas. It's over. Any questions? Going forward, you didn't read it from the... Did you? Okay. Because I have it over there. That's fine.
They come to pray. I've seen one boy, he's around 20 years, but he's not a normal person. So the wudu, he doesn't know, maybe he's not aware of anything, but he comes to pray, his father brings him. So
the question is, if somebody was born with, certain disability, mental or otherwise, or physical disability, whatever it may be, right? And it may be a little hard, right? It's going to be harder on that person, him or her, to perform, wudu and prayer and everything. The answer to that is, as long as they are sane right? And they reach the age of puberty, baligh, Muslim, reach the age of puberty, and he is sane or she is sane, then the prayer is mandatory on them. Now, it is the responsibility of the father and the mother, their parents, and whoever else who can help to actually teach them and help them, right? They need to be helped. If they require help, then they ought to be helped, right? And they ought to be taught. And then in the end we say, whatever they can do, they must do. And whatever they are incapable of doing, then Allah, Ghafurur Rahim. And Allah Azza wa Jal says in the ayah, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah and have taqwa to Allah as much as you can. Allah Azza wa Jal does not overburden a soul beyond what it can. If Allah Azza wa Jal is testing that person with certain disability, right, and he is incapable of performing certain acts, then he doesn't have to. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as you possibly can. Now, going forward, now we said, what are the acts that require wudu? And then this is also something that we discussed before, but just a quick refresh of the memory. What requires wudu and what acts it is recommended to have wudu for them. Now, difference is obvious, right? What you must have wudu for and what it is recommended, and it is the sunnah to perform wudu for, right? What is required, obviously, the first case, salah, right? We said it is one of the prerequisites of the salah, and it is a mandatory requirement of the salah. And we gave a lot of examples, a lot of proofs and proofs on that, including the ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, to the end of the ayah that tells us about al-wudu. Also in Hadith Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, in Sahih Muslim and At-Tirmidhi, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحد بغير طهور أو طهور. So no salah is accepted without wudu. Second act that requires the wudu, tawaf, right? Performing tawaf, whether it is fard or whether it is nafil, it doesn't matter, either way. Like a salah, it could be fard or it could be nafil. Can you perform salat nafil without wudu? No. By the way, some people do that. Even some people question, why do I need wudu for nafil? This is nafil, this is from me. I'm just doing this extra for Allah Azza wa Jal. Look at the way they're thinking, right? I'm doing this extra for Allah Azza wa Jal. Why do I need wudu?
Because it's extra.
Because it's extra, right? SubhanAllah, by the way, sometimes the question can tell you that the person has a deep misunderstanding. When you do nafil, right? It's not that you're doing this for Allah Azza wa Jal, you're doing this extra from yourself to order. Who benefits? Allah Azza wa Jal benefits from that nafil prayer? You! You're doing that for yourself. You are the beneficiary. Allah Azza wa Jal is not in need for your extra prayer. You pray extra, that's for you, for your own benefit in this life and in the hereafter. You don't do it, it's up to you. You don't have to. So, the way that sometimes people ask questions, it tells you that there is a misunderstanding. So likewise, whether tawaf is fard or whether it is nafil, in either way, you have to have wudu to perform it. And Rasulullah ﷺ was described that he performed wudu when he performed tawaf bil bayt. He performed wudu and then performed tawaf. Also, in another hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ said tawaf of the house is a salah, except that Allah has made talking in it allowed. You can't talk in the salah, right? In tawaf you can, although it's not recommended to talk, worldly matters, but you can. So Rasulullah ﷺ is saying that it is like salah, but you can talk in it. Also, the third place or scenario or case where it is mandatory to have wudu is when you touch the Quran, the Mus'haf, with your own hand, with your own skin, without a shield. Then you have to have wudu. This is for Allah Azza wa Jal said, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. None touch it except the purified. And he alayhi salatu wasalam said in the hadith Sahih, that Imam al-Albani judged as Sahih, related by Imam Malik and Darqutni, لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر. No one should touch the Quran unless he was pure. يعني having a wudu. Now, very side note, especially for the women, sisters, for example, when during their period, right? A lot of our sisters, they are regular in reading the Quran. They might even have like a set schedule, right? They have a certain portion that they read on a daily basis, right? It is permissible, and all the scholars have said that it is permissible for her to actually hold the Quran with gloves, for example, by wearing gloves or something, right? A barrier or shield, right? And then hold the Quran and then read, her, whatever the portion that she's used to. Or if there is a need, for example, to teach her kids or teach somebody, right? Then it is permissible for her to do that. The next topic is what acts. In which cases it is recommended to have wudu, right? Now, they're not mandatory, but they're recommended. There are multiple cases.
I'm sorry, one thing is related.
Yes.
If we have to give the Quran to a non-Muslim, so how he can have the wudu and then we can give it to him? Is it recommended?
You don't have to give him the Arabic text. He's not going to understand it. Give him the English translation of the book, right? That's one. Or some scholars even say that when you actually give, there are now masahif that are both Arabic and English at the same time. So, for example, each page, one Arabic on one side and the English translation of the meanings on the other side, and so on and so forth. When that is the case, it's not a mushaf anymore, meaning because it contains other than the words of Allah Azza wa Jal. So it is permissible to give him that. Or if it is just the English translation of the meaning, then no problem, because the English translation is not the Quran. It's not a mushaf. They are not the words of Allah Azza wa Jal. These are just translation by human beings of the meanings of the Quran. Right? When we say mushaf, we mean only the Arabic text. That is what requires a wudu, to be able to touch it directly without a shield. So, what is recommended to have wudu? First is when making dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal or reciting the Quran. Right? Now, notice the difference between touching the Quran and reciting the Quran. Touching requires wudu. Reciting, I may not be touching the Quran, I may not be even holding the mushaf. I'm reciting either by looking at it, and it's on the table, or reciting from my memory. It is highly recommended, or the sunnah is to actually, when doing that, or when doing general dhikr, right, al-adhkar or any of Allah Azza wa Jal, then it is recommended to have wudu. Second is to perform wudu at every prayer. Notice the difference. The wudu is a required requisite of a salah. But you may perform wudu, for example, for salat al-dhuhr, and not nullify it until Ashr. Do you have to renew the wudu? No, you don't have to. But it is recommended to. Right? And this is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He alayhi salatu wasallam used to perform ablution before every prayer. You don't have to, but this is the sunnah. And he was described in Sahih al-Bukhari as كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يتوضأ عند كل صلاة. He alayhi salatu wasalam used to perform ablution for every prayer, even if he didn't nullify his wudu. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Third case is to have wudu. Somebody who approached their wife, right? So they are now in a state of janaba, and they want to go back and approach their wives. It is sunnah to perform wudu before going back. Now, also, it is the sunnah to perform wudu before going to sleep at night, right? Or before eating and drinking. All of that, it is recommended to have wudu. And this is for, based on the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا أتى أحدكم أهله ثم أراد أن يعود فليتوضأ. When anyone amongst you approaches his wife and then he intends to repeat, he should perform ablution. And also hadith Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا أراد أن ينام وهو جنب توضأ وضوءه للصلاة قبل أن ينام. Whenever the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم wanted to sleep and he was in a state of janaba, then he performed ablution as for the prayer before going to sleep. Also, likewise, if he was in a state of janaba and he wanted to eat and drink, I'm sorry, I missed that. He was in a state of janaba and wanted to eat and drink, then it is recommended to perform wudu as well before eating and drinking. The fourth case where it is recommended to have wudu is before performing ghusl. And we're going to come to that. There's a separate section on that. But just because we're talking about where it is recommended, so it is recommended to perform wudu at the beginning of ghusl, as he alayhi salatu wasalam used to do. The fifth place is when going to bed, even if you're not in a state of janaba. Now the previous one, if you are in a state of janaba and you wanted to eat or drink or sleep, right, then it is recommended to have wudu. But also in general, even if you're pure and you want to go to sleep, then it is recommended to have wudu before you go to bed. And he alayhi salatu wasalam said in the hadith, related by Imam al-Bukhari, إذا أتيت مضجعك فتوضأ وضوءك للصلاة ثم اضطجع على شقك الأيمن. When you want to go to bed, perform ablution as you do for prayer, then lie down on your right side. And the hadith is longer with the dua, to say. And inshallah, we're going to come to that in the future. So these are the 5 cases where it is recommended to have wudu, right? When doing dhikrullah azza wa jal in general, when reciting the Quran, when before every prayer to renew the wudu, it's a sunnah if you want to do that. When you are in a state of janaba and you want to sleep or go back and approach your wife or eat and drink, it is recommended to perform wudu before that, before making ghusl, and in general before going to bed, before sleep. It is only recommended. It's not mandatory. Now, the mandatory places where you have to have wudu are only 3 and only 3. That's it. Salah, tawaf, and touching the Quran. These are the only 3 cases where you have to have wudu. Now, so this concludes what we actually talked about before. And if there are no questions, we can go forward to al-masah ala al-khuffayn. Any questions, ya akhwan? No questions? Since we have a little bit of time, I know we did this before, but I know that this is actually pretty important. I want to make sure that this actually is well understood in your minds. I want one volunteer, not to give money. I want one volunteer to come forward and perform the wudu for us, a full and complete wudu, and then tell us what is the absolute minimum and what is sunnah of the wudu. Who can do that for us? Brother Yusuf? Tadam. I want the mandatory acts of the wudu and the recommended acts of the wudu. Recommended meaning sunnah acts of the wudu. So what is the absolute minimum? And what is recommended to have a full wudu? What is the absolute minimum? How many things? And I'm going to stay as much as possible without helping.
So we talk about the niyyah.
Is it required? Required.
It's required.
Yeah, I'm just testing you by the way.
The niyyah is required.
No.
Right. And then washing the face is required. And then washing the arms.
Washing the face how many times?
1 time.
Including what?
From the face, brother. You can see it. The face is from the edge of the hair here all the way down to the chin, and then from the one side from the ear to the other ear.
So from the boundary of the ear to the boundary of the ear horizontally.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't wash the whole face. And that's wrong, by the way. That invalidates the wudu. It's not a valid wudu. A lot of people, wash half of the face. And that's wrong. So you have to make sure that you're actually covering all the face. Now,
So you do that one time.
one, including
the mouth and the nose.
now, once. That's the absolute minimum. That's the required. Now, second,
And then your arm from the tip of your finger to the elbow. Both arms,
Yeah.
one each.
once.
And then
Third,
you wipe over the hair either once or you go to the back and then come back to the front once, and then including the ear. Okay? And then you wash your feet up to the ankles
up until the ankle.
once
Once for each side.
for each side. Yes.
That's the required.
Okay?
Fifth one,
The order.
order.
Right? It has to be sequential.
Can you, for example, do masah al-ra's and then wash the hands? No, that's not a valid wudu. Right. Sixth one, very related to the order.
Yeah, the sixth one is without, you have to do it continuously.
Succession.
Right, succession. Yes.
Right. And it doesn't work, for example, right, to do, you wash your face and then you wash your hands and then you go have breakfast and then you come back after half an hour, you do masah al-ra's and you continue your wudu. That's not a valid wudu. If you do that, then you have to start all over.
Start all over.
Now,
Inshallah.
that is the absolute minimum. This, if you do that, that's a valid mujzi' wudu. What is recommended to have?
So in addition to everything, right, you have the niyyah, you have miswak,
Using the miswak,
use the miswak,
recommended.
it's recommended.
Saying,
You start with Bismillah,
you say Bismillah.
start,
No.
and then you wash your hands
Yes. How many times?
3 times.
3 times.
It's recommended.
No. Recommended. You don't have to have it, but it is recommended to wash 3 times.
And then you wash your face, your nose, and your mouth, including the nose and the mouth 3 times.
No.
And then when you do the mouth, it's recommended that you
Swirl the water
swirl
around.
It, yeah, you swish it, make sure it's washed.
Yeah,
really
not like,
clean. Yeah,
right?
you take time to wash.
No.
And
You
then-
actually wash the mouth.
Yes.
Likewise, the nose. You bring the water all, as much up as you can inside the nose and then blow it, clean the nose.
Exactly.
Unless, in one case, except in one case,
When
I'm
you're
sorry,
fasting.
when you're fasting. No.
Okay. And then the arm, it's recommended you do 3 times.
No.
You start from the right to the left.
You start with the right side. That's the sunnah. Somebody started with the left side and then made the right side. Is that a valid? Valid. Is this the best? No, it's not the best. The better is to actually start with the right side and then the left side. Now, when we say arms, what do we mean by the arm?
We're talking about from the tip of the finger, including in between the fingers, all the way down to the ankle, up to
Right.
the ankle.
If somebody just did it from here to here because thinking that we've already washed the hands up front, so khalas, we've done it, now I can just wash from here to here. Is that valid?
No, so the first washing of the arm, that's not required, right?
That's a big mistake, by the way. I see this all the time. A lot of people do that. Ya akhwan, the first time, the washing of the hands up front, that's sunnah. You don't have to have it. But when you actually come to washing the arms, it is mandatory to wash the whole arms, even if you did it up front. That includes the fingertip all the way to the elbow. 3 times, sunnah. Also, we said regarding washing the arms, there is another sunnah also.
So you need to take time
Massage
to
it.
massage it, yes.
It's okay if you just let the water run on your arm. You put it below the faucet and you let the water run. That's okay. But what is better is to actually massage it as you are washing it. Now, if there's something on the skin, manicure,
It's recommended you
on the nail
you
or
take it off.
It's not
It's required.
It's required, right? So the wudu is not valid if there's something on the skin, on the places where you have to wash, that prevents the water from getting to the skin. So manicure needs to be removed. If, let's say, for example, you were painting, there are some paint traces on your skin, they have to be removed, right? Somebody who works at a bakery and there's dog, stuck on his or her skin, that needs to be removed before you perform wudu. Now, well, that actually there is some details to that. Let me, inshallah, once we finish, we come to that.
Tattoo.
Anything. We're just giving example. Anything that prevents the water from getting to the skin has to be removed and cleaned before you perform wudu.
He had a question about tattoo.
Tattoo you cannot remove for the wudu.
Tattoo is actually not from the outside. It's actually, I think from my understanding, it is something that they actually make beneath the skin. It is actually deep in the skin.
So the wudu is valid.
It is valid because it is not preventing the water from getting to the surface of the skin. And that person is not going to be able to remove it, no matter what he or she does. Right? Once they do it, it's permanent. There's no way you can remove it. No. Okay. So we're done with the washing the hands,
Right.
the arms, I'm sorry.
And then we do the hair.
Then we do the head. What is the
We talked about
way of doing the head? Wiping over the head.
we wipe from the front to the back, or we wipe from the back to the front, or we go from the front to the back and come back to the front,
And then come back. Now. And then including
including the ears.
Right.
The same. We don't need to get fresh water. The same water that you use for the hair, you use the same water to get into the ear, and then wipe behind it as well.
Now, to wipe the head itself, do you bring fresh water?
Yes.
Yes. You don't use just the water that is remaining from washing the arms, I'm sorry, right? You bring fresh water, and then you release the extra, and then you wipe. But with that water, the remaining of the water, you actually clean your ears. You don't bring fresh water. That's the sunnah. Now,
Okay. And then you wash your feet 3 times, starting from the right to the left. Make sure you get in between the toes.
you work your fingers in between the toes to make sure that the water gets everywhere.
Right. And then you do shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allah. The additional dua is Allahumma
اجعلني
ij'alni min at-tawwabin waj'alni min al-mutatahhirin.
واجعلني من المتطهرين اللهم اجعلني من التوابين واجعلني من المتطهرين اللهم آمين. Any questions يا أخوان about this? Okay. No questions? So for the bandage, if the injury, right? Obviously, somebody is putting the bandage, meaning that there is an injury, right? They injured themselves. If that injury is not harmed by water, then it needs to be removed, and you let the water get there, and then you put the bandage. If it is required, you put it back on. If it actually harms the injury or it delays the recovery of that, then you can actually keep the bandage and then let the water go over it, right? Now that is not like the case where we said, for example, paint or that. Well, the question of the brother was if he had already done it, right? Now, obviously, performing tattoo is haram because it is changing the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? تغيير خلق الله. That's the hukm. Let's say, for example, somebody who's not a Muslim. Let's take that example. Christian, Jew, whatever, right? And in those days they performed tattoo, right? Now they converted to Islam. Alhamdulillah, Allah Azza wa Jal guided them, and they accepted Islam. So what do they do now? Yeah. Well, it's not easy to remove. That's one. Second, it is from what I hear. Allah, I don't know. I don't have much knowledge about that. But what I heard and from what I know, is it is pretty painful and pretty expensive to do that. And it actually may leave marks or whatever, right? So it may not be feasible for everybody to do that, right? But those who did it before accepting Islam, it actually erases all the previous sins that they did before converting to Islam, right?
The ladies, they put henna on it, doesn't require.
Henna is different. No, henna actually it's permissible, no problem. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So if there are no more questions, moving to al-masah ala al-khuffayn. And like I said, this is actually one of the pretty controversial issues. Not that it is controversial in itself, but people make controversies around it. And like I said, people sometimes they are so strict about that, more than the Sharia allows for that. And so this is what I wanted to actually take some time and kind of dig deep into this topic, right? And obviously we may not be able to cover it all because it has a lot of sections in it, requisites of or conditions of performing masah al khuffayn, and when how to perform masah al khuffayn, etc., etc. But if from the aspect of its ruling, is it permissible? Is it not permissible? And these days we use something else, socks, right? Do they have the same hukum or whatnot? So this is what we're going to be talking about today, inshallah ta'ala. First, we can say that al-khuf. What is khuf? Right? You can translate this literally into English by using slipper, right? So al-khuf, right, is a slipper that is made from skin, animal skin, that can be used by people to cover their feet, right? They used at the time to actually wear them. They even used to actually go out with them and walk in them, right? And they were, like I said, they are made from skin. Something similar to them is what we typically now use, and what is more popular these days or commonly used is what's called socks, right? That are not made from skin, but they are made from wool. They could be made from linen or cotton or anything similar, right? That we use these days. The first question: what is the ruling on al-masah on the khuffayn from a Sharia perspective? We say that there is ijma', consensus among the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah on the permissibility of making al-masah ala al-khuffayn. And the proofs on that come from the Quran and from the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also, like I said, also from the proofs is al-ijma', the consensus of all the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What is the purpose of al-masah ala al-khuffayn? We say the purpose is that it is a permission by Allah Azza wa Jal. It is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal to remove any burden, to remove any hardship, right? Any inconvenience of having to take off the khuffayn to be able to perform wudu every single time you need to, right? It is a permission from Allah Azza wa Jal. That is the reasoning, right? And this is the illah, if you wish, right? Why is it permissible? The illah is that Allah Azza wa Jal is offering us ease in this religion. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us, He actually made this religion easy. And indeed it is easy for those who contemplate and understand. From the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we say that al-masah ala al-khuffayn comes in so many ahadith that are mutawatira. So it reached, those ahadith, they reach the level of al-tawatur. Al-tawatur, which means that these ahadith have been narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through multiple chains, so many chains that they are so robust and they are so authentic, right? That they reach the level of tawatur. And they confirm that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself did it, al-masah ala al-khuffayn, himself ordered others to do it, other Sahaba, to perform Masah ala al-Khuffayn, and he permitted other, the Sahaba to do Masah ala al-Khuffayn. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, and by the way, I'm not saying that he is the only one, but I'm just giving an example. All the A'imma, they are with the opinion that it is permitted, that it is legal to perform Masah ala al-Khuffayn. But Imam Ahmad, he summed it up, if you wish. He said, I have nothing in my heart with respect to the issue of al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. Meaning, he has nothing, no doubt, not the slightest doubt in his heart that it is permissible to perform al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. And he said there are 40 hadith, authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ that tells us that it is permissible to make al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. Imam al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, he said 70 of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ related to me. Now Imam al-Hasan al-Basri is from al-Tabi'in. He was not from the companion. He didn't see the Prophet ﷺ. But he said 70 of the companions, radiyallahu anhum wa ardahum, they told me and related to me al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn, 70 Sahabi. He met 70 Sahabi who related to him that they used to perform al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. I can't think of any stronger proof and evidence more than that would prove that it is no problem whatsoever. It is definitely permissible to make al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. Now notice we're still talking about al-Khuffayn, which is by definition is made from skin. We haven't even now made any deduct or we haven't derived anything from that. We're still talking about al-Khuffayn. It is definitely permissible to perform al-Masah ala al-Khuffayn. From those ahadith, remember we said there are so many ahadith that they reach the level of tawatur. One of those special ahadith is what Jarir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhu narrated that رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بال ثم توضأ ومسح على خفيه. Related by Imam Muslim, and a similar narration was related by Imam al-Bukhari عن المغيرة في باب المسح على الخفين. The literal translation of this hadith, Jarir ibn Abdullah is saying that he himself saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam urinated. Now he didn't see him urinating, but he saw him going to urinate. Some people may like, what? They saw him going to urinate and then performed wudu and then wiped over his shoes. The al-Khuffayn. Al-A'mash, who is in the chain of the man who narrated the hadith, and he himself is a scholar of hadith. He is muhaddith, right? He narrated this hadith from Ibrahim. He said, from Ibrahim, he is saying, we used to like this particular hadith. Now, like we said, there are so many hadith, right? But he said, we used to like this particular hadith. In particular, why? Because Jarir ibn Abdullah is the one who narrated it. And Jarir ibn Abdullah, he converted to Islam after Surah Al-Ma'idah was revealed. And the ayah of the wudu, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم, right? وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. That ayah, which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ before Jarir ibn Abdullah accepted Islam. Why is this important? Why are we mentioning this? Because there is always this maybe a little doubt that maybe that the Masah on the Khuffayn was permitted in the early stages of Islam, and then it was nusikhat by the ayah of al-wudu. Some people may make that argument. They may say, well, that was in the early days, but then it was erased and it was undone with the ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayat al-wudu. We say no, because Jarir ibn Abdullah, who narrated seeing directly the Prophet ﷺ making masah on the khuffayn, He only converted to Islam after Surah Al-Ma'idah. Obviously, the ayah of al-wudu was revealed, right? And obviously, he narrated that hadith when? After he converted to Islam. Which occurred after the revelation of that ayah and the whole surah in which the ayah of al-wudu is. So we say this is beyond doubt that al-masah on the khuffayn is permissible and is legal to perform and is an acceptable form of an alternative of washing the feet to the ankles, because Rasulullah ﷺ was seen performing that. مسح على الخفين. طيب. So this is from the Sunnah, from the Quran. The proof is from the very same ayah. How? Now we all know that there are multiple qira'at of the Quran, right? We all heard about there is al-qira'at al-sab'iyya. There are 7, even in another reference, there are 10 qira'ah of the Quran, different qira'at of the Quran. Now, typically in the qira'ah that is most commonly used in the Muslim word, right? Including, for example, qira'at al-Imam Hafs an Asim, right? That we typically recite here. The ayah is recited as such. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم. So أرجلكم is actually tied to washing the face and washing the arms, right? And that is why, for those who understand a little bit of the Arabic language, أرجلكم meaning مفتوح, there's a fatha above أرجلكم, like وجوهكم وأيديكم, right? But for the masah, وامسحوا برؤوسي كسرة كم, right? So أرجلكم actually has the same hukum as the face and the arms, which needs to be washed. But in another qira'ah, it is recited as such: فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ. And that would be masah like the head. So there are 2 qira'ah. It can be recited as such, or it can be recited in another way, which would actually cover both cases: washing the feet and making masah on the khuffayn. That is the proof from the Quran. The third type of proof is ijma' al-muslimin. And if you remember from the very first class that we had in here, we said that there are 4 types of proofs in the Sharia. We said the Quran, Sunnah, al-ijma', consensus, and qiyas, which is the analogy, right? Sometimes there are new things that are emerging in our lives. What do we do? It wasn't at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So we use al-qiyas. Do they share the same reasoning? We're gonna use this in a moment here, right? Now, the socks were not that common at the time, right? But so what do we do now that we have socks? So what do we do, right? There's nothing in the Sharia that talks about the socks. We know that there is something about al-khuf. So what do we do? But there is ijma' among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that al-masah ala al-khuffayn is permissible, whether you are journeying or whether you are in town, whether there is no need or even if there is no need. You don't have to have a need to make masah ala al-khuffayn, right? You can use that, and this is, like I said, ease from Allah Azza wa Jal, rukhsa min Allah. You might as well use it. Because think about it, ya ikhwan, those who refrain from doing that, or sometimes they say, well, you know what, I have something in my heart from it, I just can't do it. We say, ya ikhwan, this is dangerous, by the way, because Allah Azza wa Jal made something easy for you, and you say, no, I don't have a need for it. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you a rukhsa, gave you something ease from Him. You say, no, I don't need it, I'm self-sufficient. That's not how the Muslim reacts. Likewise, shortening the prayers while journeying, right? Likewise, if you feel tired, you can break your fast, even if it is mandatory if you're journeying. You say, no, I cannot do that. Allah Azza wa Jal is giving you permission. You say, no, Jazakallah khair, I don't need. No, it doesn't work that way. And it's wrong. So now we've established that the masah on the khuffayn is beyond doubt permissible and legal and is an alternative to washing the hands, whether you have a need or not, whether you are journeying or not. What do we say about now socks, which are made not from skin? They are made from wool, linen, cotton, or any other. Now there are multiple material that the socks can be made of. And this is what we typically use now. The khuffayn are very rarely used. Not everybody, right? It's not common. What has become common is to actually use the socks. The question becomes, do they have the same hukum? Can we actually make the analogy and make masah on the socks like it is permissible to make masah on the khuffayn? Right? That's a very good question. And again, like I said, it is very controversial. Sometimes they are so sensitive about that, and it ends up usually in pretty heated discussions. I could start feeling the hall a little bit getting warmer. I don't know about you, but the answer to that, ya ikhwan, and we're going to go into the details, but in a short summary, then yes, it is permissible to perform masah on the socks like it is permissible to make masah on the khuffayn. Why? Right? First, we say that this is the majority of the scholars, the opinion of the majority of the scholars of Islam is that it is permissible to make masah on the socks like it is permissible on the khuffayn. Second, we say that there are not just one, not just two, not just three. There are a decent number of narrations from the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ that they performed masah on the socks, right? And these are sahih narrations, authentic narrations from the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ. And Imam Ibn al-Mundhir, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book Al-Awsat, he said the permissibility of wiping on the socks was narrated from 9 of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These companions include the likes of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They include the like of Ammar ibn Yasir. They include the likes of Anas ibn Malik. They include the likes of Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu and on his father. They include the likes of Al-Bara ibn al-Azim. They include the likes of Bilal, and they include the likes of Abu Umama and Sahl ibn Sa'd. Even Imam Abu Dawood, he said that also added to these are Amr ibn al-Harith and Umar himself, radiyallahu anhu, and Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhu. All of them, it was narrated authentically that they performed masah on the socks from these great Sahabi.
Same materials what we using now.
We're going to come to that. And not only that, but, the scholar also, Imam Ibn Qudama, in his book called Al-Mughni, which is a book of fiqh, right? He said that the Sahaba wiped over the socks and there was no one who disagreed with them during their own time. Because sometimes, some people might come and say, they made counter. That these narrations are from the Sahaba, they're not from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who is the messenger? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who has the authority to legislate? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not the Sahaba. We agree there is no narration, authentic narration from the Prophet ﷺ that he actually performed masah on the socks, only on the khuf. But we say that we have now these great Sahaba from the Prophet ﷺ, companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who performed masah on the socks. And it was narrated authentically, and no one during their time who disagreed with them, and they said, or disputed that it is not permissible. With that being the case, we say that becomes a proof. Because obviously other Sahaba saw them and they learned about these narrations and nobody disputed with them during their time, that becomes a consensus. So, is there a clear analogy between the socks and between the khuffain? Or is there a clear distinction between them? We say the analogy is actually pretty clear. The analogy is pretty clear from the aspect of, let's go back and see what is the reasoning for making the masah. Why Allah Azza wa Jal permitted the masah? Is the reasoning tied to the fact that they are made from skin? Do we make masah because it is made from skin? Or whether because it is of a specific color? Or is the reasoning tied to the fact that it is inconvenient and it may become a hardship on the person to have to take them off every single time they need to perform wudu? What is the reasoning? You know what you understand what I mean by reasoning? Al-illah, right? Which is typically referred by la'alla. Like we say for example, siyam. What is the reasoning for siyam? Achieving taqwa. Allah Azza wa Jal said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. What is the illah for the permissibility of making masah on the khuffain? We say the illah for doing that is not because that the khuffain are made from skin. That has nothing to do with it. That happened to be what was common at the time. But we said permissibility to make masah on the khuffain was because it is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is a rukhsah. Allah Azza wa Jal is permitting us to remove any burden and to remove any hardship. Because it can become a hardship. Imagine now when you go to the offices and work, right, and you have to take the socks every single time to perform wudu. Some people can't maintain their wudu for a long period of time. They have to perform wudu for every prayer. Naturally, they just can't maintain it. And by the way, I hear it from everybody. We're not done, by the way, with the discussion. We have some more to say. But I'm just taking the opportunity to actually discuss this and to tell you that it is really burden for some people. I've heard it from some people that, it is just not possible for them to go to the restroom while at work and take the shoes off. People will look at them. What are they doing? They just feel shy from doing it. And you know what some people end up doing? Delaying the prayer for so long, sometimes even beyond its time. Because guess what? During the winter time, Maghrib is before 5. Now, the time for Dhuhr is gone, the time for Asr is gone. By the time you get home, it's Maghrib. Then what do? Some people miss the prayer. Can you imagine? They take the prayer outside of its allotted time just because they don't have wudu. Ajib, how can you possibly do that? Now you have, mandatory prayer. And when you do that every day, that's a problem. That's a big problem, subhanAllah. So I'm just telling you, it is a burden. Some people, where's the burden? Well, just go to, companies and work and offices and ask Muslim people. It is a burden. And it is not easy. It is such a big inconvenience to some others to have to take off the shoes and be able to wash or need to wash their feet. The difference between the socks and between the khuffain is the material that they are made of. Like we said, the khuffain are made from skin, and the socks are made from wool, linen, cotton, whatever it is. Is this difference or this quality of the two things that you cover your feet with, is this a condition that is typically, if you look at the Sharia of Islam, is this something that we see typically the Sharia build rulings on? Is this something that you can actually make as a prerequisite for the permissibility of doing? You don't see anywhere in the Sharia where it says if it is from skin then you can do it, and if it is not from skin then you don't do it. Rulings aren't based on the material as long as it is halal. Don't get me wrong. As long as it is halal, from pure substance, acquired in a halal way, right? Then this is not a precondition. It is not something criteria that you build ruling on. You don't see anywhere in the Sharia of Islam doing that, right? So when you take that into consideration, then the analogy between these two, and I'm sorry, 1 second. The analogy between the two becomes very clear. They are the same, and you can compare one to the other. Now, we say that all of the scholars, or the majority, I'm not going to say all the scholars, the majority of the scholars who permit, and they say that you can make the qiyas between the socks and the khuffayn, they say that those socks obviously need to be thick enough so that you cannot see through them. Yani, some socks are so thin, so thin that you can see through. You can see the foot through it, right? And basically just let water go inside. Those are not permissible to make masah on. But if they are just thick enough, yani the ones that we typically wear, right? For example, like the sock that the brother is wearing. They are just thick enough, they cover well the foot, you cannot see through them, right? They can be used, you wear them on the foot and you can walk in them. Those can be compared to the khuffayn and you can make masah on them. Yes.
Any cotton socks, doesn't matter how thick it is. If you put the water on it, it will still go all the way to the skin.
Yes. But remember, now, when you make masah, this is also one of the things that a lot of people make mistake. When you make masah, you're not going to soak the khuffayn with the water. The point is, you actually, like you do for masah al-ras, right? You take fresh water, and then you release the extra water, and then you make masah. So your hands are barely wet, right? It's not like you're gonna bring water and then pour on your socks or on your khuffayn and soak them with water. That's not the purpose of making masah. Masah is different than washing. Notice, there you have ghasl and you have masah. Ghasl is washing. You're gonna wash your feet, right? You're using, a quantity of water to wash and soak your feet. When you're making masah, your hand is just barely wet, and you just make masah. You wipe over your socks. Yani for the majority of the socks that we typically wear these days, I cannot think of one that can actually, with that little water, it will actually soak it all the way down.
But around the wudu area, there is always water.
Yes.
And by accidentally, you just walking, and then you doing the masah, and the socks is wet, then
that's still fine. I mean, it would be good if you can avoid, stepping in the water. But even if you do, that's still fine, because this has nothing to do with invalidating the masah. And I can tell you one more, brother. Think about it. Even for those who wear skin-based khuffayn, right? You understand that when you wear the khuffayn, they are actually sewed, right? It's not just one piece of skin, right? It is multiple pieces, and there is sewing to make that khuffayn, right? Believe me, if you step in water, the water will make its way in those places where the skin meets. It's going to make it there. Not only that, think even more. Think about at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Back in the days, we're talking 1,400 years ago, right? What do you think of the quality of the khuffayn that they used to wear? Not only that, think about those poor Sahaba who didn't have the means to basically, of the luxury that they would be able to get the best khuffayn. Not only that, and change them so often when they wear off. There are Sahaba who couldn't afford to eat, let alone having a khuffayn that are new or well done and everything, right? They would wear off, and sometimes they might end up with holes in them, right? And yet, this is what they could afford. When you take all of this into consideration, right, it should become very clear that the socks and the khuffain that are made from skin, there are clear analogy between them. And you can make qiyas from one to the other.
Well, there's a lot of arguments. Like you said, when you started the concept. What people are saying, I've heard that argument that if the air passes through your socks, it's not becoming for muscle.
No.
Yeah. It has to be taken up in the air. Actually, there was some, if you go to the internet, people are selling us socks. We say it's like a skin sock. It's made of skin.
Yeah.
The air, and they're selling for 40, 50, 60 bucks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like.
So like I said, the question becomes, is this how the socks, is this how the khuffain were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Were they that tight? We're talking 1400 years ago, right? Were they that tight? Water cannot get through, and every Sahabi could afford to buy one every few months because when they wear off to get a new pair. Obviously, it's obvious that was not the case, right? They would wear off, and obviously they weren't as tight. Water could potentially get inside, right? So, like I said, the analogy between the socks and between the khuffain becomes so clear. And not only that, like I said, let's remember that there is a reasoning behind making masah on the khuffain. And the reasoning is not that because it has nothing to do with the fact that they are made from skin or not. It has to do with, this is a permission from Allah Azza wa Jal, and it is ease from Allah Azza wa Jal, who is offering this to us to make it so that it is not a burden, it is not a hardship on us. That you can actually make a masah on the khuffain. Let's see if there have more. Like I said, they need to be thick enough, just thick enough so that you cannot see through, right? Some people go to the extreme, right? You can see through it as if you're not wearing anything. That obviously cannot be used to make masah. The condition is to actually be thick enough, right, to be able to not be able to see through, right, and be able to use them to wear them and walk in them while wearing them. Then those should be no problem and can be compared to al-khuffain. Yes.
So it's valid for 1 day and 2 days to traveling.
Now, this is actually would be one of the next topics. This is actually the condition of you making masah on the khuffain, which is different. The time frame, from the time frame perspective, it is different for those who are journeying and the ones who are not journeying. For those who are journeying, Rasulullah ﷺ permitted to make masah up to 3 days and 3 nights. And that time frame starts from the time you make masah. The first time you make masah on the khuffain, you start counting 3 days and 3 nights. For those who are not journeying, they have a 24-hour period of time. Yani 1 full day and 1 full night. Yeah. But this is coming, inshallah, in the next topic. What time Isha is? 10 o'clock. So let's wrap it up in the next 3 minutes, inshallah, or 4 minutes. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question. So if there is a place that you can take your socks easily,
You can take?
take your shoes and socks
Yes.
comfortably without any problem. Is it allowed to do a masah even that condition?
Remember what we said? Al-masah ala al-khuffain is permissible whether there is a need to do that or not. The reason, again, it is a rukhsah from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is a rukhsah. Allah Azza wa Jal is giving it to you, every Muslim. You are allowed. Allah Azza wa Jal is making it easy on us to make masah. Whether there is a need or not, whether there is inconvenience or not, whether there is hardship or not, it doesn't matter. Yes. So even if you are in a place where no problem, there's no inconvenience or no need, the masah on the khuffain is still permissible in that case. No. Any other questions, ya ikhwan? No more questions? with that said, if there are no more questions, inshallah, I wanted to give you some heads up. Next week, inshallah, we are not going to have a halaqah because there is a student of ilm who is coming from Jordan, right? From Jordan. He is the student of Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, who was one of the greatest muhaddithin of our time. He is his direct student. He studied with him. And he's coming over to Chicago for a couple of days. He's going to be giving a couple of lectures at Masjid Dar al-Quran in Chicago, Masjid Akhuna Faisal. Barakallah fi. So next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? In Arabic, and Akhuna Abu Abdullah got me into translating the lectures. So they will be translated into English, real time. I would highly recommend that you guys make the effort to go there. You can carpool or something, but I trust that it will be very beneficial. A couple of lectures that are very beneficial. It is a important opportunity. Don't let it pass you. We're gonna actually be broadcasting, and inshallah, hopefully, Brother Mukarram can help us video record it as well. But it is always good, and you get more ajr if you actually sit in the circle of ilm yourself over there. I know it's quite a distance, but may Allah reward you for every step you take to go there. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.